this afternoon's webinar. My name is Vince Danielli. I am a AEC team lead, specifically for our construction team under our Building Solutions Division / AEC team. Personally, I have 18 years of industry experience in architecture and construction. I've been with IMAGINiT now for 11 years, and I am based out of the Detroit, Michigan office. Next.
All right, and again, my name is Scott Burke. I'm the AEC Cloud Solutions Program Manager. So I work with all our teams in relation to any of the Autodesk Cloud-related construction and design tools. And my background was originally architecture, but I've been in the reseller channel since about 2000. So it's coming up on almost 21 years now as a reseller, and 10 years before that in the world of architecture and design.
Yeah, so for today's session, we're going to explain kind of a high-level overview of the Autodesk Construction Cloud, some of the differences between it and BIM 360, and then we're going to do a main module overview. Those of you who have or who joined the last session, I think I did one back in, I don't know, July or August. It was primarily focused on the differences. This one will have a higher focus on the unified platform. And originally, I was going to sort of wear the hat of the designer and then hand it over to Scott as the contractor. But just prior to the presentation, my computer decided to start freezing up. So Scott will be running pretty much all of the demo portion, but we will split it up from the design side and then into the construction side. So without further ado, we'll get right into it. So next slide, please. So what is the Autodesk Construction Cloud? Well, ultimately, the Autodesk Construction Cloud is a unified platform for integrated project delivery, all the way from design to the planning phase, the build, and then finally operations. We're not really going to touch the operations side during this presentation, but it is all one platform to manage everything. So just kind of the philosophy with Autodesk, there's a lot of tools, or were a lot of tools, different tools in the marketplace that accomplished what Autodesk was trying to achieve with this idea of a unified platform. They've continued investment in acquisitions of some of these different tools. And really the primary reason that we're talking about a unified platform is that they're integrating a lot of these acquisitions into this singular platform. So the whole idea is taking all of these different pieces for design, field collaboration, pre-con estimating through assemble, and bringing them together into one place, and that is the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So we talked about that, being a single unified platform, and just a quick comparison between BIM 360 and this new idea of the unified Autodesk Construction Cloud. There were certain portions of BIM 360 that weren't essentially integrated with each other. So ultimately, the overall ACC unified platform, the idea is that we're integrating all of these tools into one, and that goes through design, planning, the build phase, and then operations. One thing that's common between pretty much all of those elements is some form of a singular shared data structure. And we'll talk about that through Autodesk Docs. But this is a nice image just to kind of show that we have these different silos, we like to call them, of information from design, planning, build, and operations. But all of those different silos need to communicate and share data. So high level, this is really what the whole purpose of the ACC is, that we have one system to really manage all of these different components to producing and delivering buildings. All right, so with that, breaking it down into smaller pieces that we'll talk about today. On the design side, the primary focus of the ACC is BIM Collaborate Pro. On the bar across the bottom, we'll see that there also is this this long bar that kind of stretches across all of these different silos in Autodesk BIM Collaborate. And then really the most important, or the thing that really manages all of our data, is Autodesk Docs. So Autodesk Docs is the CDE program that really manages all of the file servers, or I guess the aggregation of all of the files that would go along with these different silos. Our focus here today is really going to be in the design, the planning, and the build phase. And you can see that we have a few of them highlighted here. So these are new offerings to the unified platform. Technically, BIM Collaborate Pro is the same as BIM 360 Design. It's just been rebranded as BIM Collaborate Pro, but it does include both the work sharing capabilities to the cloud through Revit, and also the functionality of BIM Collaborate. In the planning phase, in the unified platform, we've added Autodesk Takeoff. So Assemble and Building Connected are definitely part of it. Takeoff is just a new type of estimating tool that is built in the unified platform. And then with Autodesk Build, there's different integrations that we now have with PlanGrid and Build, which Scott will be going over today. So, great. So yeah, as I mentioned, stretching across all of the different silos, really the driving force behind the unified platform, the whole file structure, is Autodesk Docs, which we can manage our models, our drawings, our issues, and all of the other things listed here. Next slide, please. All right. And just comparing the two, sorry, collapse this out here. So just comparing Autodesk Docs to BIM 360 Docs, and Scott might have something to add to this, but essentially everything now is managed in the unified platform through Autodesk Docs. It is now available as a standalone product. So before, you really only had access if you had a license of Build or BIM Collaborate Pro, or you had an AEC collection. They have, I think it was towards the end of June, maybe beginning of June, offered it up as a standalone product. So companies that might not necessarily need all of the functionality of BIM Collaborate Pro or the Build suite of modules, they can still purchase and manage their projects through Docs without those other pieces. It is a US server at the moment, if that matters to anyone. There's no specific mobile app for Autodesk Docs at this time. So comparing it to BIM 360, that's probably the major difference. With the unified platform, we can still maintain and create BIM 360 projects. So if you have any legacy data on BIM 360, you can still manage it through the unified platform. And BIM 360 Docs does give you, or I'm sorry, the ACC does give you access to legacy Autodesk Docs, and that's been added to the AEC collection. So anything I missed there, Scott?
No, I think so. I think you got it all.
Okay, excellent. So again, the whole idea of Docs is that we just have this one streamlined document management system, whole system to control files, documents, and the approval process, as well as keeping document versioning, which is a huge function of the platform, because we can go and back check differences between versions, and you'll see in the demonstration that there are some great tools to really identify what has changed between published versions of packages, and there's a lot of powerful stuff that can be done just on the underlying document system in itself without even having BIM Collaborate Pro or Build. Next. All right, so just some screenshots here. We'll get into this in detail, but one thing that we can really, or one really powerful thing about Autodesk Docs is that we have the ability to invite people internally in our company and externally to our projects. That can be a scary thing. So with that, with Autodesk Docs, we can also assign a lot of different levels of permissions to file access within Docs. So we can set, based on a person's username, their role, or a company, we can assign different levels of permissions and what they can see and what they have access to through this system. So this screenshot really just shows that we do have the ability to assign permissions. You can see that there's view-only access, create, upload, and then editing, and then ultimately with a project manager, they have full admin privileges over the project where they can manage folder structures, they can create new folders, and assign people different permissions. So really nice granular level control over who has access to what in the project, and we can customize all of those different sharing options. So whether it's based on group, company, or just assigning individuals access to certain files. As I mentioned before, we also have the ability to version our documents. So one great thing that we can do is either through PDF or through publishing. If we do have BIM Collaborate Pro and we're publishing views up to the cloud, we can check versions between different documents. This screenshot is just a pretty basic one between two different package releases, or whatever you would want to call that, published releases, where we're highlighting elements that have changed between one version release of a document to another, and we can isolate those objects. So even in this screenshot here, you can see there's an addendum 02 and a 100% CD, so probably a final package release there. We can see what it's changed between the addendum, or I'm sorry, the addendum would be on the final package. So we can see in the red what has been updated after that 100% CD, and we can isolate, in a really quick visual to know what's changed. And even then from there, we'll go through issues and everything, but then you can assign issues to the documents or to the views in your project. Another great thing is we can assign document approval workflows. So if we have a chain of people that need to go through a review cycle, we can set up these and customize these different review cycles, in this case, a submittal review. So for example, if I publish a package and we set it up for review, we can assign certain individuals to review that. And as it goes through the chain, once that person reviews and approves or comments, once they approve, it'll go through the next person in that chain, and then finally get to final approval, and all of that shows up in our documents. So once we get final approval, we see that on our documents or our individual project files to see that they have been reviewed for submittal. All right, so now getting into really the design side of everything, sort of beyond docs and getting into the model authoring and work sharing capabilities within the unified platform. So we'll talk about BIM Collaborate. So with Autodesk BIM Collaborate, this is kind of traditionally built with all of the document management. The key features for BIM Collaborate in itself, not specifically to BIM Collaborate Pro, but just BIM Collaborate. We do have model coordination that's part of that. So they're kind of to differentiate BIM Collaborate with BIM Collaborate Pro. BIM Collaborate is built on top of this whole system, BIM 360 docs, but we do have, the big part of Collaborate in itself is that we can do model coordination. So kind of our traditional clash detection that you may have traditionally done in Navisworks and reporting clashing, that's all cloud-based now and can be done through BIM Collaborate. The added piece to this when we get into BIM Collaborate Pro is that connection to Revit and the enablement of work sharing. So, these are separate pieces to the ACC. So if you just have BIM Collaborate, you have the full coordination functionality. But if you only have BIM Collaborate, you are not getting the connection down to Revit. So getting into Collaborate Pro, and I should mention that there is functionality between Civil 3D and Plant 3D as well. We probably won't get into that too much unless Scott has some thoughts on that. We have some examples of Civil 3D files that have been published up to our project that we can share. But the idea behind BIM Collaborate Pro is essentially it is the same as BIM 360 design, and with Collaborate Pro, we're getting this added functionality of cloud work sharing between these applications. So it really does a great job if you're a Revit user. You don't really have to worry about the central model to local file configuration anymore. It's really all managed through the system itself. So it's a really great tool, stuff we used to run into in the past, even with standalone servers or Revit server. There was always that risk that someone might get in that central file and start messing things up. We really don't have to worry about that anymore with BIM Collaborate Pro, and we'll highlight some key features there. Essentially, with BIM Collaborate Pro, it's just giving us access to work sharing and the publishing functions. When we're making updates to our model, we can publish those changes up to the cloud and view them within the platform. All right, so now it's my portion of the demo that actually Scott is going to take over. So I appreciate it, Scott.
No, my pleasure. I certainly understand computer issues. They always happen at the worst possible time. They're designed to do that, I think.
Exactly.
All right, so let me go ahead, and I want to just jump into the software here. So as Vince said here, everything starts at docs, right? That is the foundation for storing everything. It's basically your network structure, but in the cloud. Is as simple as that. You invite various different people into your project, and you control what they have access to. So when I look at, my first design models folder, and I may look at prop permissions for that, it's just the project managers. So I have Matt is actually a civil engineer at my company. I'm the construction manager or design build at my company, and Vincent is one of the architects and leads our architectural department at the company. So we're all managers of the project, so we have access to these folders, but you notice no one else does. I have an outside structural consultant and I have an outside MEP consultant. They have no access to this folder. But if I go to the MEP folder, then you notice John Jones here, who is my MEP consultant and lead, has access to that folder. And I go to the structural one, the structural engineer, Sam Smith, has access to this folder. Obviously, the managers have access to everything. So they only see what they're supposed to see. When I go over here to my general project documents, they can't see this, but they can see specific folders. I may have given people access to the specifications folder. So the main folder, no, but when I go into a specifications folder, notice that the ABC structural and the MEP installers company, anyone who belongs to that company, has access to this folder. In this case, just view rights. If I want, they probably need to download these too. See, they've been elevated also to download. So they can both view and download files in here, but they can't do anything else with the folder. So the key here is it's very controlled, it's very granular control based on either someone's name, based on their job function, or based on the company they work on. And you can instantly remove people's access just by removing it, and they stop having access to that location. So another thing that this tool really is also a universal viewer. So you can put just about any publicly recognized design file, basic files like docs and PDF and even PowerPoint, and view them directly. So this is a Word file. I don't have to own Microsoft Word in order to open it. I can get in here and open that file and read it and see all the sheets and such. So I have access to any of the documents, in this environment. I don't have to own the authoring software. I can open up, obviously, PDFs. I could open up MicroStation files. I can open up Navisworks files. I could go to the architectural folder. I don't have Revit yet. I can open the Revit model and have access to that model and all the data within it. That's one of the key things here. And we're not even we're just talking about docs right now. So right here, I can get into 2D sheets. I can get into 3D sheets. I can see all the information. I can get the properties of the objects. I can mark things up here. So these are markups and issues that I've created inside the system. This issue here is a building code issue. We need a door added here, and I assign that to the architect. And I'm not sure who needs to do it, but someone as an architect needs to fix this, and it was due on May 27th, so it's actually past due. So I can track all my issues, I can mark things up, I can basically go into my company, go into the supply closet and throw all the red pens away and replace it with this. And now all my markups will be tracked, traced, version specific. I will be able to track everything with all the issues. Here are all the issues that are listed. And still, we're still just talking about docs right now. So the power that just plain docs brings to the table, that is literally free for anyone who's using Revit right now. You have access to docs if you own a collection license. So you already, many of you probably already have access to this tool. Here are all the issues throughout the tool. And the key thing is, this is a master issue management, no matter what tool you're using. So whether or not you're using Docs, Collaborate Pro, Build, Cost, all of it. Any issue you create is transparent to the entire team. And that's really what this is all about. If I make that next step up here, when I'm looking at my files, I have various folders that I've created for my architectural team, my MEP team, my structural team, my civil team. So right here are their workspaces, and each team only has access to their folder. They can't touch anyone else's folder. Architectural team, there's the architectural model. So now, using my Collaborate license, I would also have access to the Collaborate area here, design coordination. So now design collaboration allows me to go in here and see all my various teams. So I'm the architect, so I see the release cycle here. So these are snapshots in time that have been released to the team. So I can see as the architect that the MEP team has 3 submissions, as was the requirement for our project. These are our milestone snapshot events. So the key here is we're not linking live models. We're linking controlled design packages that when the architectural team is ready to share a document with the extended team, they can share that document with the extended team, and it's a snapshot in time. It's not the live practical. Now, as a manager here, I can take an MEP engineer. So when I go to the MEP engineer.
So basically what we were going to show is some of the different features of BIM Collaborate, and specifically, probably beyond what he was just showing, some of the coordination under the model coordination feature of BIM Collaborate. And one good thing or one good feature, and just kind of explaining it without showing it, is that when you publish different model views, so from the Revit end, you can have a collaboration model configured and publish 3D views, certain isolated views. So let's say we have a collaborative model that has all of the disciplines, architecture, MEP, and structure, all in one aggregated space of a Revit project. You can isolate different views and publish them from Revit to create coordination, clash detection in the cloud. And then through that system, we have the ability to compare different models or different views together in order to create clash. And then from there, we can then assign issues that then go back to the docs system. So all of that issue tracking is done sort of globally throughout the entire system. So when we pin an issue to an object, if it's a coordination issue like a clash detected between pipe and structure, we can pin that to the model, issue it to an individual with a deadline, and that gets put back into that system that Scott was showing with issues, and we can manage it through there. I think that's essentially what we were going to show from BIM Collaborate. So getting into the next part, after we've got sort of the design handoff, now we're getting into more of the planning and then the build phase, which would be the construction portion. So the next part of the unified platform that we'll cover is Autodesk Takeoff. So Takeoff is a tool that allows us to do planning and pre-con. So this is kind of a very specific module in the unified platform. It is still managed and maintained through document management, just like everything that we have in the ACC. But the primary use of Takeoff is that we can do 2D and 3D takeoffs of those published models within the platform. So once everything has gone through, design submittal and it's ready to do some quantification, we can use Takeoff to start to quantify our model and break it down into different pieces. So kind of just some screen caps of Takeoff here. So through Takeoff, this is a module that we select from that dropdown. And getting into the module specifically, I don't think there's really anything too important here. Switch between modules, we already know that. We can set up a classification system for our estimate. So there's a primary system that we can set. In this case, we can see master format, and then an additional classification if we need to break it down into smaller detail or additional detail, we can specify a different classification system. And with that, we've got basically our code breakdown, and then you can assign that to your different model elements and then start tying in cost estimates in order to output to an overall budget or overall cost estimate. Same member control that we have, we can add certain individuals to this module. This is a little bit different than what we were talking about with folder permissions, but actually giving people access to the Takeoff module. We can assign certain individuals and people from outside companies if needed. And then obviously we still have the all of the permission controls, comparing documents. So a lot of these slides are just repeat. This one here is a live look at what the Takeoff module looks like. When we open up a document or a specific view within Autodesk Docs, we can start to create quantities and quantify different areas. So just using tools, you're basically creating regions, selecting model elements, whether it's a 2D view or a 3D view, and assigning different classification groups to those parts. Scott, are you there? I hear some.
Yeah, I just got back.
Okay.
And GoToMeeting is did something to my machine as well as yours.
Yeah. So I was just kind of pushing along and going through your portion here. So if you want to, I don't know if you want to, kind of went through the Collaborate Pro stuff just to move forward.
Good.
If you want to go through Takeoff.
Yep. I'm going to show my screen here again. And where did you lead off? Did you just got through Takeoff already?
Yeah, I kind of got to the page where we actually are looking at Takeoff with the different regions highlighted. So probably about 4 or 5 slides ahead there.
You talk about right here in this area then.
Yep, right here.
Okay, good. Yeah, so hopefully I can pick up here again. So as I am sure Vincent was already talking about, Autodesk Takeoff is a quantification tool. So it's not a cost estimation tool here. It's a way of quantifying information both in 2D and 3D, and then tracking both either on 2D documents where you're literally drawing on the document and marking up and measuring the areas that you're taking takeoff of, or you're going into a 3D model and then you're actually picking the objects, and then it's giving you a lot of information about those objects, such as its length, its height, its volume, and it's going to give you far more accurate types of takeoff information. And then when you look at a wall, you break the wall up and you build formulas in so that it looks at a wall and it knows that a certain type of wall is going to have this much square footage of drywall. Based on the height and length, it's going to tell you how many studs it will need to have at 16 inches on center or 24 inches on center, how much area of vapor barrier you will need, and so on. So when you have the models, it can really give you a lot more information, and literally a single click you can pre-build in the formulas to compute these things and create all these classifications for you. So it has that 2D takeoff again, which again is still going to be very quick and efficient, but it also has the ability to do the 3D takeoff, which is going to be even faster. But not everything is modeled, so you're always going to need a combination of the 3D takeoff for the things that are modeled, and then you use the 2D takeoff in the sheets and so on for the things that wouldn't be accounted for in a model, because you wouldn't model the vinyl baseboard as an example, right? Those types of things. So of course you can go in and still quantify certain 2D things, but again, take the advantage of the 3D model, or Maybe you don't have a model at all. It's just 2D, you can just do 2D. So that's the key here, is this tool works for all industries, not just the 3D world. And again, we can aggregate the 2D and 3D quality and quantities into essentially an Excel spreadsheet that you then take that, export it out, and then bring it into Sage or whatever tool you're going to use for the actual cost estimation side of things. So really, this is preparing the model, gathering data, making sure you capture everything, putting it into a very digestible format in the form of an Excel file, a CSV file that you would then bring into whatever program that you'd like to use for your cost estimation side of the quantification. So this is, if you're familiar with tools like called on-screen Takeoff, similar to what the application is, but far more capable, of course. So moving on, so again, Vince as the architect would hand the design over to me. I would then start taking that, start doing the quantity takeoff on that, and then we're going to start building the building. And so we're going to get into Autodesk Build, of course, here. So Autodesk Build is really for managing that entire construction process. So it's everything from all the documentation. There's a tool for cost management, budget creation, change orders, payment applications, cost forecasting. There's project management in the form of RFIs, checklists, punch lists, safety checklists, meeting minutes, daily reporting. We get into quality and safety. It's actually using that form tool to do those types of checklists, issue management coming from the quality issues that you may run into or safety issues. And there were tools also for project turn and closeout for gathering all the data for handover to the client. So this is really one comprehensive project management solution in the field, and that's its main purpose. Most of this is done via the tablet in the field, and that's really how this is all working. So as I said, there's a very powerful and configurable project management systems for managing the RFIs, comprehensive submittal management tool. All these are workflow related. There are ways to manage all your daily reports that your site superintendent does. And this is what happened today. These are the people who are on site. This is the work they performed. Here are the issues we ran into. Here's the weather today. All of that is automated and put into very easy to digest forms and things that are part of the system. Meeting minutes. So now you can track all your meeting minutes within the system and track all the individual items within every meeting in one comprehensive location. We have, as I said before, comprehensive and workflow design RFI management, where you have defined managers, defined reviewers, defined co-reviewers and such, and it must go through a particular process and walks you through the different stages of that RFI. Same with a submittal. There's going to be a submittal manager, and either they can assign submittal items to subtrades, or subtrades can create their own submittals and send them in as part of your contractual agreements. As I mentioned before, there's a comprehensive meeting minute tool to manage all your meetings and make sure that who attended the meetings, what was discussed, was the item resolved, does it have to move into a follow-up meeting, and so on. We have daily reporting where we can create a work log, materials, equipment on the site, the weather today, the people who are on the site today, how many workers, what did they do? All of that is very easily reportable within the system. So it's very proactive quality management using some of those forms where we can have predefined checklist. Maybe there's PDF forms that you've been using for years. They're great. There's no reason to replace them. You can incorporate those directly into the system and just make them intelligent. So it's a standard PDF that you've always used that you filled out by hand, and instead you brought into the system and automated it so that it's now electronic and you enter the data, but within the tablet environment. Same with quality, build your new forms, build your checklist, use existing PDF forms, track all your issues in the same issue management tool that we saw earlier. We have the ability to create our own punch list, just checklists that are just lists of question and response types and have logic in them, so that if you put a negative response in, it will require that an issue is created from that item automatically. Same with safety management, your safety inspection list, safety observations, safety training. All those forms and things that you have to fill out, OSHA regulations and such, can be incorporated into the system. All your safety planning, create, again, those checklists that you need to do when you do safety environment, fall protection, and so on. Inspections, safety training forms that people have to go through, observations, and so on. And as I mentioned before, simplified project closeout. We have commissioning tools that we can track all the assets, the equipment in a project that you're commissioning for HVAC purposes. It could also be just furniture. You could track the installation of windows if that's what you wanted to do. All of those are part of this tool, which then forms a backbone of what you'd be handing over to a client at the end of a project. Hey, here's all your equipment. Here's all the documentation, warranty data, maintenance instructions, whatever that would go with that equipment. Turnover documentation. And again, I'm able to pick a folder and just drag the entire thing and send it out, or have other tools in the system that will grab all the sheets, all the RFIs and all those issues and collapse them into a single zip file of all the data that I can hand over to the client, again, at the end of a project. Another part of it, and included with Build, is cost management. This is a very comprehensive tool. It's almost bigger than all of Build put together because it does so much, and it's for managing and creation your budgets and contract administration, especially and really geared towards the change order management system on a project, ensuring that you're staying on budget with a project when changes happen, and that's inevitable in every project. There's payment applications that are built into the system to make sure people are getting paid. E-signatures are built into the system. You can put your own documents in the system and have smart fields fill out those documents as well that become contracts that get out. So budget creation and contract administration is in here. There's the change order management for potential change orders, requests for quotes, requests for a change order, owner change order, supplier change order. All of those are built into the system, and you can manage all of those. You could take an RFI and promote the RFI into a potential change order. So you can start at an issue, then assign an issue to an RFI, and then assign an RFI to a change order. So they're all linked and connected to each other. And again, payment applications here. So create and manage the payment applications for owners and suppliers. So again, automatically generate the payment documents, log project expenses, seamlessly incorporate it into payment applications, and so on. Cost forecasting, so you can stay on top of changes and see how the changes and how the cost of the project might be changing based on the changing environment of, hey, an owner decides, hey, they want to use a different type of material in the lobby of the building, and it's much more expensive than the original material. How does that change the budget? All that information can be incorporated in here via RFI, a change order, and so on. And again, the key here is because all of this data is in one single cohesive place, everything from the earliest stages of design to hand over to the client, we have the ability to have the insight here, the ability to look at this data, create dashboards for our project so that we can pull out using reports, so we can gather information on, hey, show me all the RFIs that are due this week, or issues that are past due, or issues that are for a specific subcontractor. I can come in and pull all this data out into what we call the data connector, into a number of files that can be then connected to Power BI if we want to analyze it further beyond what the system does. We have the artificial intelligence, the construction IQ machine learning, that I can get an overall risk assessment of all my projects in a single cohesive dashboard. So I can look at my one project and see what high risk RFIs I have, high risk design factors I have, all of those things. I can also have what we call an executive dashboard, where I can see everything across all projects and see which of my projects have the highest risk today, which of my subcontractors have the highest risk in the form of, this subcontractor has an awful lot of issues, I should take a deeper look into that to see if those issues really are something they're doing wrong, or it's just the nature of the project that a lot of problems are coming up that are really out of their control, and it's not their fault, to be fair as well. So this really helps you analyze that and understand those things. So I'll jump into the software myself here. Just give me a second to get this open, because again, my computer is a little unhappy there. There we go.
Fingers crossed.
So yeah, I know. All right, so we'll get into my project here. So again, the key here is that this is all interconnected. So Vince was in my project too as the designer, but I just didn't give him access to Build because he didn't need it at the time. Now maybe I'm going to include him in the CA, so I would assign him a license of Build so that he could also access the project. And even that's very easy. I mean, I can go right to members right here and say, oh, we're getting into the construction process here, so I'm going to take Vince in here, and I'm going to also now give him access to Build. He doesn't need access to cost management, so I won't bother with that, but I will give him access to Build right now. So now he has the ability to promote documents, to access all the Build tools in here. So I can go right to Build. Now I'm in Build. But again, I'm in the same project. We were both in the same project, but now I'm in the Build aspect of it. And now I have my project progress, so I can just set up an overall timeline. You know, this is when the steel framing is supposed to be completed. The curtain walls and roof should be completed on this date. Next year, the MEP work should be completed on this date. And we might have, you know, different handover to the client is on that date. Here are all the milestones for the project and their due dates and things like that. So I have this nice kind of quick overview of where we are in our project as recent overdue issues, ongoing issues, things that have been done lately, and so on. This is just my dashboard. So when I'm ready to move the construction, if I look over here at files, the art Vincent won't even have to print PDFs. All he has to do is he can go right to his Revit model. He has all the sheets in it that are ready to be published, right? So he's included those when he published it. And all he has to do is hit this button, publish to build sheets, and he would just hit that. And it would take that model and it would start publishing that. I would pick a set either that's already established, like the primary construction drawings, or create a new distribution set. Maybe this is a revision and so on, but I'm just going to cancel this. I'm not going to actually do that right now because I've already done it. He would just hit that button and it would just publish all the sheets, but into the sheets area of Build. Now I have all the construction documents. So I've completely skipped the step of PDF creation. I went right from the Revit model to it created essentially a PDF, but in the sheets area right here. So in one single step, he was able to move right from design to, hey, well, we're ready to build. Click, all the sheets get pushed into the build side of thing as a sheet, and I'm done. And then I'm ready to build. Now, of course, he probably is going to print PDFs to get stamped to store in City Hall, right? You got to do that. But after that's been done and we have that official set, he is just printing it and pushing it directly right within the system with a single button click. And all he has to do is it scans the sheet numbers, and usually just have to hit yes, yes, and you're done, and everything's ready to go. Especially when it's coming from Revit, it's much easier than when you're trying to print to a PDF first and then go in. So now I have all my sheets. I have all the access to the different versions. This was the initial set right here. Notice I'm warned that it's not current. Here is the latest set right here. So these are the actual construction drawings that are current, so I have access to all of that. I have markups that I can share with the architect. Anyone in the team here, that's all available to me. Hey, I took a picture in the corner over here, and I want to see that picture right there, and I put that on the plan while I was on the site. Hey, this is completed, or I have a question about this. I took a photo, created an issue next to it, or I just want to mark that this is done, or it's a problem area, or something like that. So I can do those types of things as necessary. So that's the foundation here, is that ability to see all the sheets. And another key aspect here is that on the tablet or in the PC, a new set came out. I wonder what's different. Well, I can just go ahead and compare these two against each other. So I can compare these two documents, hit the compare button, and now right here I can go in and I can see all the changes in the document. I can understand what was changed from version to version here. So now I can go in and say, oh, this is the different colors. Red is the new, blue is the old. Let me go into a side-by-side mode now that I've identified the change areas. Here's the original document, and here's the new document and the changes that happened to it. So without anyone telling me what the changes were, in a few seconds, literally, I was able to go in and see all the various different changes and where they are in this document, all the areas that I have to pay attention to because of those changes that are in this document here. So again, very powerful tool there. We have, of course, the common issue management tool across all trades right there. So all from the earliest stages of design, I see clashes that were done here. So I can see my clash issues and I can go into these issues here. There's the information about it. There's the Revit ID number to find it in the Revit model. There's a nice screen cap of the actual clash, so that gets put on the reports that are sent out of the system. So I get a nice visual report with all the details of this particular clash and who is it assigned to, when is it due to be resolved, if it's been resolved, and all of that. As I mentioned before, I have a comprehensive RFI management tool that walks me through the steps. So as a user, you can't do anything wrong because it tells you what to do. These two right here are in review. So it's telling me that the next step here, it's been submitted. It's now in review and I have to submit. In this case, Sam Smith is the person assigned to it. So the ball in court is Sam Smith. This was due on April 27th, it's way past due. So I got to hit the submit official response now and say what the response is. It then goes to the manager who reviews it. And if it looks correct, he will close it and distribute this or send it back to the reviewer for more information. And any information that they've uploaded, there are some files, there are some sheets, there are some issues related to this RFI, and it's all tracked in the system. I have a full activity log of every button press in this issue. The whole history of this RFI is tracked here. Who did what and when. I have RFIs that, of course, are completed in here. So this one has been closed and distributed so everyone in the team can see that if that's what you want. So again, they were looking for the model information on a fixture. Again, it was from this drawing, that sheet right there. Here are the people who worked on this and answered the questions. It's all here. And this one is completed and it's approved. And if I want, I could reopen it if the mistake happened or if I need to for whatever reason. But this is a closed RFI. Same with submittals. Submittals walk you through the process. Either a subtrade can self-create a submittal item and send it in, or the manager can assign a submittal item and assign it to someone. So right here, here's a closed submittal that's available to everyone. This is an open submittal that's been submitted from the contractor to submit the shop drawings for the stair. And all those shop drawings are right here and they've been submitted. And now we need to submit this to the reviewer. And then I'm going to go to some reviewers. The steel designer is going to review the shop drawings and make sure that they're correct, approve them, send them back to me as the manager, and I would close and distribute those to the extended team if the required data is here. So again, we have a very powerful submittal management system that walks you through the various steps. I can see I have an open submittal, I have 2 required submittals, and I have a closed submittal. So in seconds, I can come in here and see exactly what I need. I could filter this to only show me the open ones, only show me the ones that are closed based on the person that's responsible for the next step, based on the status of that, and so on. The next thing here is really the meeting minutes as well. So this is what I mentioned before, where I have meeting minutes. So I have 2 different meetings. I have site work preparations and steel framing the planning meeting. So this is the first meeting, meeting 1, and it's an agenda. And these are the items that we're going to be discussing. We're going to be talking about the shop drawings, the fabrication lead time, delivery to the site. These are all open issues. During the meeting, I would go in, I would make sure people are invited. I would check them off as attending the meeting. And then I would mark an item as ongoing or closed. If it's closed, it stays here. If it's ongoing or open, when I create a follow-up meeting, the open items just get copied into it and keep following the meeting until they're resolved. And individual meeting minute items here, hey, I actually wanted the delivery to the site to be talked about first. So I'll move that there. And then I'll go into that and say, who needs to talk about the shop drawings? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to assign that to Sam Smith. And again, or basically I have to invite him to the meeting first, right? So I have to go to invitees here, add invitees, and make sure that Sam is in the meeting. And then John Jones, and he's the only one that needs to be in this meeting besides myself because he's the structural engineer. So again, I can now go in here and say this is assigned to Sam Smith. So his job is to get that done. And when do I want this done by? This meeting minute item has to be done by maybe October 14th here. Okay, and maybe there's already an issue. I could assign this to a reference and I could assign a meeting minute to a file, to a sheet, RFI, submittals, issues, photos, potential change orders. Could all be part of this meeting minute and be connected to it. So now that's been assigned to that individual and I've assigned a due date to it. If I come over here and go back to the meetings, I can see this meeting here has had several meetings. This meeting 1 and 2 are completed. This is the agenda for this meeting that was supposed to happen yesterday and it didn't. So maybe I need to push that out because the meeting changed, whatever. And a new thing here is I can add a link and I can integrate a Microsoft Teams meeting right in the meeting here. So when I send that out, they click on it and there's our meeting. So they can use this to incorporate that directly into it now. I don't need to manually cut and paste a hyperlink to a meeting in here if I use Teams or Zoom. And again, this is ongoing items that came from previous meetings. And then I have the forms here, which again are your checklists that you can either create your own checklist from this here. Oops. So in the forms there, you can have PDF forms that you like to use and use those. So like a time card I'm using right there, so I can go into that checklist, and this is just a PDF form that I use that I like. And I could actually go in and fill the form out when I put in my time. And notice that the time right here is automatically filling that information out. Or I can go into a form that is checklist based, such as a check, like a punch list or something like that, and that information is here as well. And it's just going through and asking questions. And if I put an issue in, it'll automatically add an issue that's already there. If I put a negative response in, it requires that I put in an issue right here, or yes, there's no requirement for an issue. These are just a list of questions that it's asking me out in the field. So again, Build has all of these different components in here. I can share my schedule and my Microsoft project schedule right here. That you don't use this tool to create the schedule, you use this tool to share the schedule with the team in the field and so on. So I can click on that, and now I have my schedule and all my Gantt chart information right here, right out of Microsoft Project. And then I can search for, hey, the plumbing activity. So these are just a plumbing task right here that I needed to see. So these are all related to the plumbing fixtures. I could go to just a list view, just a Gantt chart view if that's what I want, or this by a month, a week, a year. I can talk about an individual item. So maybe I'm having a conversation about this one thing that I'm installing. It could be a sink or whatever, a plumbing fitting here. And down in the bottom, I could say, hey, and I'm going to say, John Jones here, he's my MEP engineer. Oops, make sure I use the @ symbol, that would help. There it is, pick John Jones, he's on the team, and hey, look at this. And I submit that. And he gets notified that there's been a comment attached to an item in the schedule. So again, this tool is not for creating the schedule. This tool is for sharing the schedule with the extended team. You still update it with Microsoft Project. You have a new Microsoft Project file, you just hit update schedule, replace it with that new updated file, and it would update, of course, all the information here. And the last part here, of course, is the assets. This is where we have all our equipment that we're tracking an installation process of. Again, I can look at HVAC equipment, air handling units. Air handling unit 3 has been specified. It's been assigned references here. Maybe there's for the air handling unit, there's a form I have to fill out, and the form I have to fill out could be this one right here, and I'll add that form to it. So now that form has been attached, that checklist has been assigned to the air handling unit. So when someone pulls the air handling unit up, they will see that they must fill the form out and so on there. And that last part, of course, is the insight, as I mentioned, where we see the construction IQ here. So now we can see all of the risk assessment on this project. So right now I'd be given my kind of dashboard. Here's all the potential risk on the project. I use Matterport as one of the tools, so I actually incorporated that in because I like their virtual walkthroughs of my construction sites here, so I can use this as a way to basically navigate that building right here. And now I can, right inside my dashboard for my project, use other third-party applications that I use. So that way Build becomes, and again, this is not a Build feature, I've used a third-party app that I also use at my firm to incorporate it into this card here. But then I have my overall risk assessment on my project. This project has low risk. None of my contractors have any high risk today. I do have some higher risk issues or design risk factors, 6 code compliance issues, 19 documentation incomplete issues, 15 issues are actually overdue. So I have that risk assessment overall. I have design risk. Code compliance is a design risk. I have quality risk, which I just don't have any quality issues right now. I don't have any safety issues. I have that executive dashboard here that shows me all my projects, and which projects. This one right here has medium risk, the rest are fairly low. So I have a master dashboard. I can incorporate Power BI into my dashboard from that data connector that I told you about earlier. So again, this is what Build brings to the table. It's this one cohesive connected workflow from that design stage all the way into the build stage. I know we've gone a minute or two over, but I think we can stop now and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, one thing I do want to point out, Scott, is that if you're sitting in on this webinar and there's a lot that goes to the ACC, at IMAGINiT we've got plenty of different options for implementation of Build and BIM Collaborate Pro. So if you have interest in this, please reach out to us. We'll make sure to find out, what's the best route and what's the best implementation process that is right for your company, whether that's a full-blown configuration or whether it's, just some jumpstart type of training to get you up and running. We're here.